Okay, welcome to our next episode of Conversations with Yogis. Today we're talking about how to take ownership of your future as a yoga teacher. We have both been teaching for a decade or over a decade now, so we do get a lot of new teachers asking us how they can become a yoga teacher after they do their teacher training, because once you do your teacher training, the world is your oyster, really, and you can, because there's so many avenues you can take, you can kind of feel a little bit lost and not know where to start, and it can prevent a lot of people from even starting in the first place. So we do get this question all the time. So we're going to share how we operate our yoga business month to month to be comfortable with finances and feel a sense of security in our jobs, and how we have established sustainable careers that have brought us through to this point. So I've been teaching for 12 years, and I'm here with Melinda, of course. Melinda, how long have you been teaching now at this point?
9.
Yeah. 9. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're still going.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think what we want to do with this episode is that you don't have to have so many years behind you to figure out how to make it sustainable, because we both have mentioned it before. We have both have burnt out, overworked, and stressed out. So we want to make sure that you can take those special steps, that you don't have to go through all this burnout cycles that we have done, and hopefully you can get into more of a sustainable career earlier on.
Yeah, just to share, like, we've tried it all, and we're going to share like our successes and failures and the routes not to take, because they are not leading to sustainability. And we have talked about some of these points on the podcast before, but it's always good to do a little refresh. Like, a lot of people, when they do their teacher training, they come out of it and they think, all of a sudden I have to get into all these studios and fill my schedule up and get on every cover list and be teaching classes all day, every day. And I mean, yeah, that you can do that. It's a good place to start getting on cover lists and starting teaching, to practice being a yoga teacher, to get good at it. Like any other skill, you have to work on building it. But the thing is, once you get into that mindset and way of working, you can really easily get stuck in it, and you can become so busy that you don't have time to work on anything else that is going to create a future for you or longevity in your career. And just think about that for a second. So if you're on cover lists and eventually working to get your own classes, what is the long-term goal there? What is the long-term goal? Because do you want to be a yoga teacher for a couple years and burn yourself out and hate it? Or do you want to do this as a new career transition where you can do this well into older age, and this is your career path? Is that possible? And if you reflect, like, if you're doing it when you're young, like, yeah, you're going to have the energy to teach 20 to 30 classes a week. But I remember thinking when I was like 30, 31 and had a full schedule, I'm like, how am I going to do this when I'm like 40 plus, like when I don't have the energy to do it? And I am 40 now as we're recording this. And I do not have the energy to teach 20 classes a week. Like, full disclosure, I teach 11 to 13 classes a week now. So I've halved my classes and created space and time in my week to do other things that generate the other half or more than half of my income elsewhere.
Yeah. Also, I guess it's trying to find what you need to do outside of studios and how to fill up your time usefully, because otherwise, like, you have all this free time, but if you just like let it linger around and you don't have a plan, that time flies away. So I think it's very important that you have an idea in your head where you want to get to or what you want to achieve, because otherwise the precious time that you have free can just slip out of your hands very quickly. So I think it's one of the important things is like having a plan and drawing out a plan for your week, so you actually can be not busy but productive. That's the word I was looking for.
Productive and like with a direction.
With a direction, yeah.
Like making long-term goals for yourself as a yoga teacher is really important, because if you're just getting through on those classes and each week and picking out covers each week and there's no long-term plan in place, then like just take a moment to think about what is that going to bring to you in the long run.
Yeah. Also, if you have plans of like purchasing your own property one day, or like having, because I think being a self-employed teacher, thinking about future as well, one day you have to have pension and all these kind of things of like how you want to plan for the future, because you have to, because you won't be able to teach 20 classes when you're very old. So if you want this to be your career path, you have to make sure it's sustainable and you thought about the far future, not just the near future. Also, like getting 20 classes nowadays, I wonder like how, because when we started, that was like a way forward. Everyone did that. Get out of teacher training and try to get on as many cover lists and try to teach as many classes as you can. But in the long run, like it helped us to learn how to teach and be confident without teaching, but also you didn't really have headspace to think about your future. So I think that's the most important thing, that if you are there at this moment, running around the city, then how long can you do this? And how long do you want to do this for? Yeah. If you have family, how do you do that? Or have partner? And because people say, like my sister, I always say that she was like, oh, you only work 12 classes, so 12 hours a week. It's like, well, not really, because you have to times that 3 times, because an hour there, an hour back to get there, then stay there. And like, that's not just 1 hour a day. So in the end, sometimes you work more hours than average people. So it sounds like you're just teaching 20 classes, but if you times that 3, that's already 60 hours. That's a lot. So
yeah, I see like newer teachers I follow on Instagram posting their schedule, and they're doing it like 25 classes a week and stuff. And that, like, I think you can get into your head that that's a measure of success, of like how many classes you have, permanent classes where you're teaching. But again, what is the long-term goal there? Like I've kind of removed myself from the studios because I had to reflect, like, where is this bringing me long term, or am I just teaching weekly classes every week and depleting myself of energy and not being able to share enough energy or feel happy in all of my classes that I have, and just like kind of depleting myself and feeling depleted in all the classes. So there, for me, there's a limit in how many classes I can teach where I like authentically want to show up and feel happy and excited to teach yoga. And it's about where I am right now.
Yeah. Also, like losing your voice every once or twice a year because you're teaching so many classes that your voice is just goes, because you overuse your voice and then you stress out because, oh no, I'm now missing out 3 days of work. I'm gonna make it to the end of the month. Because in the end as well, you're still gonna get the same amount of money, or amount of money from these places. And then if you're missing out a few days, and then you want to take a holiday, so it's a lot of things to think about when you just working for other people. Also, what we talked about as well. Do you know that class is gonna be there forever? Like, you have a class now. Do you have it next year? Do you have it in 5 years? You might not know, because the studio can be sold, the studio can go bankrupt, they just decide that this class doesn't work on that time space anymore. Sometimes, yeah, so there's lots of things can happen. So the security of a class, a permanent class, is actually not permanent. It's just falsely called permanent in a way, I always think, because nothing is really permanent in life.
Yeah. You have to keep them full too, so the pressure is on. And it's like, if you take a step back and reflect on it, you're building up somebody else's business. And then I've I've felt this a lot of the time in yoga industry is like how disposable you are if you're not performing. And so like there's a lot of pressure on you to um, keep the classes full and appease the students instead of teach yoga authentically and in a way that is authentic to you that might not be so popular. And if your class numbers drop, then that's off the schedule. So then you're living in this fear response from month to month because especially in London, I know like everywhere, cost of living has gone up, but living in London is like super, super expensive with rent. Usually you're living in a house share or maybe with a partner or with your parents if you're a newer yoga teacher, because it's going to be really hard to make enough money to have a comfortable life living in London. And if you are just doing it on the class model, you're going to be having to work so many classes that you probably won't even be able to enjoy your life, have a social life. Like I've been at that point in time before where my voice was so strained, my body was so tired that like on my day off, if I got one, I just wanted to sit at home and lay there and not talk to anybody because I like needed to let my body repair to do it again next week. And you get into this cycle of like, what am I doing? Like I don't have a life. I'm just teaching yoga. I'm physically and mentally broken. So this is kind of the feeling that prompted us to, or lit a fire under our butts to do other things. And the pandemic helped with that too, because it forced us to be able to become familiar going online. So we'll move into, I guess, what else do we do to supplement so we don't have to teach that many classes a week? Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck is like building the class list and then getting stuck there and being like, well, what's next?
Yeah.
So what would you say? Like there's so many routes you can take.
Yeah, routes, very American. So I do think the first step I will always take is looking at your local community, because in the end you don't want to travel around too much for your classes, and whether you already have settled in a place or you didn't, just starting your own classes in an area. Because at the moment, yoga is offered in studios, in gyms, but yoga is expensive. So you could just find a home, rent it out, and then just build your class from there. And if you don't have enough students in the area, you can market it. You can use Instagram, you can use your website. So we are creating different useful tools that we can share with you through some special episodes actually in our podcast, that how to create this community around you so you don't have to work so hard and run around and work for other people. And because you can fill up classes easily on your own, it's just like you don't have to know how. And so that's what we've been doing first is stepping out of studios and trying to find a home where you can just do your own classes. And then later on you can find more places or do more classes in that home. Because if you just have to think about, you have to cover the rental fee, and then you have to at least earn as much as you would earn with a studio class. So, and then everything on top of that is like, oh, actually I can earn more and better, and then I can build something special here and teach people something special, and you will be much more encouraged as well to bring special things onto those classes when you actually get that profit back as well. You're not just running yourself and getting £20 from a studio.
Yeah, because studios are paying like £25. So realistically, what is the risk? It's like losing the hour of the venue payment. So you want to find a venue, and like, yeah, you can find cheap venues or more expensive ones. It depends what you want to do. Like churches and community halls tend to be quite affordable, or you can hire like a dedicated dance space or like a co-working space. They have studios that might be a little bit more expensive, but also you can market in those areas and in those businesses and say, oh, I'm doing yoga at this time, so people might be interested. Do marketing the old-fashioned way. If you're doing it in the community, look at the community stores, ask them if you can leave like a little flyer somewhere, if they have a bulletin board, like a lot of people are still doing that. If you look, like my local coffee shops, everybody's has like little things like osteopathy, or you see other yoga teachers doing stuff, or massage, things like this. You do have to do marketing, so don't just like hire a space and hope people come. You do need to tell people about it and yell about it a lot consistently.
Yeah.
But if you do the math, like say, like I've hired places for 30 pounds an hour, sometimes it's 40. I think more on the 40 end would be realistic at this point. And then if you had like 5 people, I'm going to get my calculator out because I'm terrible at math. So if you had 5 people paying 15 pounds, that's 75, and then minus 40, you'd be making 35. Thank you. Sorry. Like, I'm so bad at math. It's ridiculous. So that's already like the same or like more than you were making. And that you can build that up into something and call it your own. And it is scary to put yourself out there, but it's needed in this career path. If you're going to be a self-employed yoga teacher, you are your business and you have to put yourself out there. And there's really no way around that unless just somebody has so much faith on you that they're going to open a studio and give you everything. And like, I do know a few people, maybe like a handful of people who have had those opportunities, but they're extremely rare, and you have to be an exceptionally good and popular yoga teacher to get them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then you can teach whatever you want. You can build relationships in the community, and people tell their friends. You know, the word of mouth starts to build it. So imagine then you have 10 people, and you have whatever else income on top of that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get the calculator out again. So if you had 15 people times 15 pounds, that's 225 pounds minus 40. That's 185 pounds that you could be making. I mean, how many classes could you take off your schedule if you could make that in one class? And like, yeah, there's going to be ups and downs throughout the year. Like August is quiet, December is quiet. You can't take those quiet months personally. People have lives, and we have like holiday seasons in the calendars that people adhere to. So it's going to be fluctuating. And then maybe that's where your like studio classes come in to be a bit more reliable on the side, but you just don't have only those at a capped rate that you're relying on. You're building your own thing as well.
Also, like sometimes because I have these community classes around me, and I started them right back after maternity leave. I left at last minute because it was like I was the boss there, so it was nice. And then sometimes my partner asks me like, "So how much do you make on that class?" And then sometimes he asks me in like a quiet months, and I'm like, I don't actually know, but I'm just like loving teaching it. So I always go there. It doesn't matter how much I make. I'm just happy. And it's also one of the places where my students are like, by the way, you can ask for us to pay more because your rate is so low. But I'm like, I did that class quite cheap because I want to make sure that yoga is affordable for everyone. And then it's just funny to see that my students say like, you could ask for more money for these classes because everyone else charges more. But I was like, no, I'm happy. So, you know, it's then you can really price it what you're comfortable with and or what you want to achieve. It's the same as like you're pricing your retreats or any events because who you want to reach. And do you need less people who might be paying more, or do you want to have more people and be paying less? So it's really up to you. You are the boss of your own business. I think it's very good.
So what do you charge right now?
£10 a class, and
that's too low, Melinda.
You see, I know. And I keep willing to put it up, and then I think from September I'm going to put it up for 12 class. £12 a class drop in, and £10 if you get a class pass. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
So how do you run it? Do people pay you cash, or do they have like a booking system and they pay online?
So they don't. They either do bank transfer or cash. Because I said that if I use a website that takes up money, and then I have to pay my tax on top of it, so then in the end I would have nothing there. But if they pay me bank transfer, then I don't have the transaction fees that Stripe or any other website would use. So it's easier.
Yeah, they
And
all have like a 4% kind of transaction fee.
yeah, which is
I
a
mean,
lot.
it's good for reducing your admin, but yeah, you need to take those things into account.
Yeah. Well, I just say it's also why I like teaching that class, because I try to get a cover teacher, but what I noticed with these kind of things, if you get a cover teacher, sometimes the students don't come. So you have to take that into account. So I wanted to make it that it's reliable, it's there every week, even if I'm not there. But then when I had a cover teacher and I paid them £35 plus I paid the rental fee, and then my student didn't come and I lost money on it. I was like, oh God, I can't really be doing that. So I was very honest with my students. Unless you will come if I'm not here, I'm not gonna put on the class when I'm with the cover teacher, unless you're here, because otherwise I just can't. I was very honest with them that I can't afford paying out of my pocket for an empty hall, because yeah, it's not sustainable. So they kind of accepted that if I'm not there, they just rather not have the class, which is sad, because I wish they would come to the cover teacher as well, because they could meet other people and stuff. But it's also personal choice. I know sometimes if there's a cover teacher, sometimes I don't go to the class, so I totally understand. So you have to take that into account as well. And since I had a baby, I would like, because I didn't take proper maternity leave, I would like to have some weekends off with my family. So, and they wear it and they accept it. So it feels like a family community. They're all very nice. They ask that. They know about my life. I know about their life. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, and it's so lovely when you have that, and it's just like something that you show up to and look forward to doing and seeing how everybody is week to week. But people have like such preferences in their yoga teachers, and they form bonds with you, and that there's a lot of trust in those bonds, and people can become hesitant to go to other teachers, myself included. Like you want to know your teacher after a while.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, there's a lot of hesitation that can come up with going to somewhere new, because you're like, oh, I don't know what the class is going to be like. For me, it's mostly about adjustments. Like, I've had so many instances where teachers give unsolicited adjustments and they don't know me or my body. And I just, I don't like that.
No, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, because like you should be asking
Definitely.
if people want adjustments at this day and age. I just don't think there's any excuse for it anymore.
Definitely not. Yeah.
But people are still doing it, which is really sad.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
And also, I haven't done like a community class, but I've done like lots of events and workshops and yoga brunches and retreats where that's like my own side project thing. So it's not a regular class. It's something else that I've organized and marketed and got people to sign up and then deliver.
I think that's a very good way, because also then you don't have to be occupied every weekend. So it's not like if you want to have more freedom, events are your way forward. And what I find nowadays with events like the retreat is just the prices of the hiring prices of places just gone up massively. Mm-hmm. So you really have to crunch your numbers to make sure you end up with something that you would want to work for. But I think events are a very good way forward of achieving earning the same amount of money you would earn with 20 classes and working less, or not running around in a circle around the city, but working from home, planning it, marketing it, and planning the class itself.
Yeah. Marketing on Instagram, email marketing, Facebook, Pinterest, even like Eventbrite, and Google. Like Google's a bit trickier, but it's definitely possible. because like, yeah, it's about, for me, it's about a balance between, because I'm like a extrovert, introvert, like quite balanced. And that's another reason why I don't want to be teaching a bunch of classes each week, because I feel emotionally depleted. And I really enjoy my time where I'm like just doing admin, sitting on my computer, being or creating stuff online. Like I really enjoy that time because it's like to myself, I'm creating something for my students and for my community. Um, and there's more like longevity there instead of just one class.
It's also like, it's a very good point, because you need to know yourself, of how do you like to live your life. Like, do you need more time to be at home and plan? Do you like to be all the time out and about? Like, I have a teacher friend, she's teaching not just yoga but also like spinning, and she's such a high energy and extrovert person. She teaches a lot of classes but in her area that she can cycle through, and she's been teaching for so many years and 20 classes, but she's really happy because she just likes to be out and about and buzzing and being busy. So it works for her. So there will be the few people who can do it, but I think there's not many of us who are such.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like it's definitely doable, but like again, my thing is like, what is the long term of doing that? Like it's not gonna at a certain age, it's not gonna be possible. So then what is she gonna do?
And also, like, that's why she's like now planning as well. She's moving more into sound healing, because it was one of the things she used to train at, training her voice. So she's now moving into more like one-on-one sound healing in her back garden. So that's why she's moving like, yeah, I can't be physical all the time. I can't be doing all the spinning classes. So I'm moving away from that. And she has a longevity plan with that. She just wants to meet all the people in the area, and then she can then move into having her own thing. So knowing your strengths, knowing what you want is very important, because otherwise you can't make it. There's no longevity in the career. Not like when you're employed somewhere, people are going to have a plan for you. Can you progress up on a ladder, or will you just stay on that same level for the rest of your career, which is fine. That's the thing, but you have a plan. Someone else had a plan for you. Or when you're your own boss, you have to have a plan, because otherwise it's not gonna be sustainable.
Yeah, so, and you have to, well, excuse me. Like if people have a partner or something that's paying like half of the bills, it's not as stressful. But what if you're single and you're paying everything out of your own pocket? Like you need to be building a long-term plan, because you don't kind of have that like other person to fall back on. I've definitely been in this boat, and it's highly motivating to work and build your own thing, and you have more time, I guess, to work on that behind the scenes.
Yes, but also like you said, like organizing events like a retreat, and for example, I find with retreat as well, it's very good, because then you can make it really personal what you want to achieve with that retreat and who you want to deliver it to. Also with retreats, you have to think about it. At the moment, there are so many kind of retreats out there. And what we found, I think, throughout, I don't know if you agree with this, Ashley, but when we did our first retreat, all of our students, regular students, wanted to come because they wanted to support us, they wanted to spend more time with us. And the more retreats we've done, we started to get our regular students who kept returning to our retreats. But also, we have a limit of how many people we can reach through our newsletter. So it's, even if you have a good plan of how you deliver events, throughout that 3 years, you have to again change, because first retreat, everyone comes because everyone's excited. Second, third, and as you reach your fourth or fifth, you started to be like, okay, now you have to reach more people than just like that 50 or 100 or 150 people you have on your newsletter, because not everyone wants to come to your retreat. So how can you expand on that? So even if you have a good plan of how you deliver events like day retreats and retreats, as you do more and more of them, you might have to shift and try to reach more people, and then how you do that. So I do feel like with being self-employed, you constantly have to evolve and grow. if you want to be sustainable, you want to have a sustainable career on your own and not relying on studios. Because after a while, it is harder. It might be harder to sell because more people trying to do the same thing, and there's always place for everyone. It's just like knowing how to market it, how long you need to market it for, and how you can reach more people so you can fill up your spaces. Especially if you get making bigger and bigger events, because you might start with 5 people, then 20 people, then you want to have 50 people. So it makes a big difference how many people you reach.
Yeah, we've learned you have to pivot on what you're offering with retreats and events, because if you have one retreat or event that was a big success and you do the exact same formula the next time, you think it's going to fill out, but it doesn't. And you're like, okay, so I have to be coming up with a new thing every time.
Yeah,
which was an interesting realization. I get it. Like if you have a huge audience, then it might be easier. But like even people with like huge audiences on Instagram, and I think that like having a lot of followers in Instagram, it just doesn't mean anything about like how much people are engaged with it. It's about building connections on these platforms. Not just about how many likes and how many followers you have. You need to build connections outside of those platforms too, like the email lists and classes or online stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And since the pandemic, like it feels more challenging to find venues that are priced well, because it feels like a lot of people just hopped on this train of like, oh, I'm going to open a retreat center and charge a ridiculous amount of money for my business, which is totally fair, but it doesn't make it particularly appealing for a single yoga teacher to put down a big deposit that's like £3,000 to £5,000 and need to have like 20 to 25 people on that retreat paying X amount to cover their expenses and make a profit. Like it's very nerve-wracking, and there's a lot of risk involved.
Yeah, I think that's
you could easily lose that money.
Yeah, students and new teachers have to be aware of this, that people who put up retreat and events, they're putting up lots of risk, putting themselves out there, and it is nerve-wracking when you're like, oh my god, how am I gonna, like, you can't go out of pocket for it because it's scary.
Yeah, and this needs to be taken into account, like when you organize the retreat, is maybe like you can negotiate with the retreat center. Some of them are a bit more open to be like, okay, maybe I put out these dates and an early bird price and see how much attention or want I get from this before I've put a deposit down on the place. And some places would be willing to do that, or maybe you work with a hotel or something that doesn't make you pay until after. Like those have been scenarios I've been in. But like my problem is with the retreat centers who are like, oh, you have to, if you book this week, you have to book it now, and you don't have that booking until you pay the deposit, and the deposit is non-refundable, and it's like £5,000, and you're like, okay, maybe not, thank you.
It's the same as I had to find a replacement for my Saturday class for a time being while the place is being renovated that I normally use.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh, confirmed, blah, blah, blah. And then they just send me a big invoice for the 3 months I'm trying to rent it out for, to pay ahead for all the classes. And like, any other place I use, I pay monthly, the months ahead I'm going into, not like it's next January. I was like, I can't pay now like £400 out of nowhere. I was like, oh my god. So I was like, okay, I think I need to have a chat with them, otherwise I might not be able to rent out this space, because I can't risk that much money so far ahead. Like I'm a sole trader, like a self-employed on a maternity leave. So, well, not on maternity leave anymore, because the baby's getting too old, but you still have to think about it.
Yeah, you have to push back. Like you're allowed to negotiate behind the scenes on like prices with venues, prices with other people involved, like chefs and stuff. It's like because some people will just push the boundaries, and you you don't have to say yes. You just be like if they're asking you for rent months and months in advance, that that's crazy. It's like that's not. I would just go back and be like, this is not standard business. I am not doing this, and this is what I'm going prepared to offer, and that's it. And
Yeah.
be quite firm.
Yes, you definitely have to. It's knowing your own boundaries and also protect your own self, because there's no one else will be there for you. So I think there's just, we could talk about so many examples of what happens throughout our businesses, that with chefs, with
Oh, well, yeah, I remember one of the chefs we had. I'm not going to say specifics. I don't want to like call people out, but like we had this chef for one retreat, and then we asked them to come back the next time, and they like more than doubled their price.
yeah,
Like it went from like, and it was ridiculous. Okay, it wasn't like 1 to 2,000. It was like 4 to 9,000.
yeah,
We're just like, excuse me, what?
yeah. Also,
And then they said something like, "Oh, well, you're from England, so you guys make more money than we do." We're like, that doesn't mean that we're wasting our money, and we're gonna, because like those expenses get passed on to the students in how much the spot costs, because like I can't pay out of pocket to run a retreat business, it gets
no,
passed on. And then the cost of the retreat goes up from like, somebody paying £1,000 to £2,000. And it's like really, really hard to sell at that point. Okay, so you're
yeah.
just shooting yourself in the foot if you're doing that. So I was just like, at that point, I'm like, this is laughable. We're not working with you.
So the main takeaway from, I think, these things, that you have to know what your boundaries are. You know, have to have a few ideas of how to protect yourself, like with terms and conditions to students, to people who book onto your events, or to caterers or venues, because a lot of things can go wrong. And it's just like knowing how to protect yourself in the end, financially and energetically, because things can go wrong. So it's good to go on your own, but you have to have a few ideas about what are the rules of business.
Like business sense.
Business sense, that's the right word, yes, because it's this other thing. We have had that before, is someone asked us to pay for the food, the catering, and we kept asking for invoice, and they kept not sending us an invoice, so we didn't pay until we get an invoice, because you can't send money out of after a WhatsApp message. Here's my bank account, send me all this money. It's like, no, you have to send us an invoice. And I remember they got really upset, and they were like, you have to pay me. No one ever not done this, that they haven't paid us so close to the event. It's like, you haven't sent us an invoice. So just like little things. Make sure people
don't be bullied by people. It's like you need to have your ducks in a row for your business. Like I have to have my invoices for tax reasons if I'm claiming it as an expense. If people haven't given you an invoice, do not pay them. But pay people on time, so you have trusting relationships with honest venue and providers and like vendors that you work with.
Definitely.
Yeah, but
it's all the little things we could say, but
I mean, sorry, the other thing I wanted to mention, like, is for generating a bit of income each month, is to have it, for me, it's having a members area on my website. And I think you do too, like with recorded videos. Because a lot of people, they move, they want to practice with you, and like you're one person, you can't be everywhere. And, people look at your class schedule, like, oh, I can't make those classes because of this reason, this reason, this reason. It's like, well, I'm not taking any more classes or changing my schedule. So if you want to practice with me, I have this online resource, which is great. One of my students even was on vacation and like disappeared for 2 months over the summer and came back, and he's like, I've been using your YouTube channel. I've been practicing with you the whole time. I'm like, I love hearing that. That's so great.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so many different ways of earning money, be seen. So just be creative.
Oh, and something else I wanted to mention is a lot of corporate events are being put on now, and they hire yoga teachers and aren't paying them, and they're paying them with like free goodies and exposure.
Excuse me. What?
So we want to be mindful that we're not being taken advantage of when we're starting to put ourselves out there with other things too. Like, not all of them, some of them are great and they'll pay you, but like you need to have those boundaries clear. And like I know some big companies, like $1 million, $1 billion companies, who hire yoga teachers to do events, and they're like, "Oh, we're paying you by mentioning you on our Instagram."
Excuse
It's
me.
like,
No.
well, what is more Instagram followers going to translate into financially when you have to pay your rent and you're already tired? Like, can you eat off of your exposure? And more Instagram followers who just kind of like vaguely followed you for whatever reason? No.
I can't. It just reminds me of my modeling days when they were paying us with clothes. Like, what am I going to do with £1,000 jacket? Like, nowadays you can sell it on Vinted, but not everyone's going to buy that expensive jacket. So it's don't yeah. Also, if you start this kind of thing, you're kind of undercutting the other teachers as well. You're setting their boundaries out, like, oh, I'm not going to do this for this because I can't pay my rent with your goodie bag. So it's also not, you're doing this not just for yourself, but for the others as well out there.
Yeah.
And I had problems with that. I lost corporate clients because my prices were too high, and I remember I still charged them £50, and that was years ago. But then they said, "Oh, we got someone who is doing it for £35." Like, wow, great.
Yeah, you get put into a position because, like, I'm quite firm with my prices nowadays too. And then people don't hire you because your prices are too high, because there's so many newer yoga teachers willing to do it for like way less. And it's like, guys, we're all harming each other. If you're gonna just undercut the next yoga teacher, it's harming the whole industry. It's not harming, it is harmed. It's perceived as low value. Yeah. So we need to be doing better, for not for just ourselves, but for each other too, and like stand firm on our boundaries and our prices.
So there's a lot of things we can talk about. That's why you do like mentoring one-on-one, and that's why we also planning to do a course on how to make all this sustainable, because we learned the hard way. It took us years and years and years. So we would like to make sure that the future generation doesn't do that, and also teaching newer teachers to stand up for themselves. I think that's such an important, because I have had seen it in studios as well, where I stood up for the other teachers, and the older generations of teachers who'd been teaching for a while, they all stood up with me. And then the new teachers were like, well, no, just let us know what we need to do. Like, oh, guys, undercutting everything we just worked on so hard to be respected again in the studio. And then you just said like, no, it's all fine. It's like, okay. And then and then all the generation of teachers just decided to leave. So that's what I see in London. All the experienced teachers have left London, because it's not worth it.
It's like, you see this cycle going on. And yeah, in the secret episodes, we're giving you guys, if you are a yoga teacher, we're going over like specifics and how to get your own side business started, what you need to work on, and like really outlining specific details. And we've also done a lot of business coaching ourselves and have had mentors, and one of our mentors is going to be joining us too. And like, she's amazing and will give you guys a lot of really great advice for marketing and building community and stuff like that. So we're excited. Please join our newsletter list, and we will be sending out the details for how to get these secret episodes only on our newsletter list. So you have to be on there to receive them or be able to access them. Okay?
Yeah, definitely. And so they are all free. So you have to know that it's all free. We just need to have you on our newsletter list. But yes.
And the links of all this stuff will be on the podcast description, so you can find them there.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and hope to listen to you soon.